My name is Christian Murray. Together with the Right Honourable Robert Delves, we organise these events. It's called Politics of a Pub for the Fremantle Network. Welcome, it's so nice to see you. Now, I'm just going to do an introduction and then we're going to get right underway. Just before I do that, is there anybody here who hasn't got a seat? Because I can see some that are available. Would anybody here like a seat? We're sorted. Easy. Okay, now to begin, I want to acknowledge the land that we're on and pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging, and acknowledge for what among our people. I also want to acknowledge the local hotel and Phil. The reason that we've had tickets these times, do you remember the last Politics in the Pub? Who here was present at the last Politics in the Pub? Wasn't that bonkers? It was bonkers. After the last one, the staff and the owner emailed me begging for mercy. And me, sitting in my computer chair, high and mighty, responded, yes, okay, I hear you. For everybody that booked tickets, I'm so grateful for your understanding. We're currently looking for a bigger venue, and I think we've got one. I think we're going to be at the Urban Winery for bigger venues in the future, so please prepare yourself for that. Now, before I introduce the MC, I'm just going to manage your expectations a little bit. Tonight is a night of friendship, not animosity and hatred. If you came here for that, you're in the wrong place. Is that neatly understood? Fantastic. There's a number of you who at the last debate were really, really fiery, and I've called you individually on the phone to ask you to behave yourself. Thank you for taking my call. If you forget my polite request, you will be getting another call from me later on tonight. This is your warning. We're all here to have a good time. We do have a formula, but the formula is loose. We're in a situationship with it, we're not married to it. So prepare yourself, everybody on their best behavior. I'm going to introduce our MC. Actually, before I do, thank you to Rachel and to Roy, our door bitches. It's a hard job, it's a genuinely difficult job, so thank you. Now, I'm really excited for this MC. I met him about 18 months ago. He emailed me out of the blue asking if I wanted to get a coffee, and I didn't really know who he was. And we met, and he spoke to me for like 45 minutes and left, and I was like, that's a really nice guy. And now he's back, so I'm great to be building a relationship with him. Our MC for tonight is Mark Naglazas. Mark has spent 2 decades as a senior feature writer and film critic for the West Australian. In more recent years, he has worked in advertising, written screenplays, and is now a freelance journalist, contributing to The Guardian, the Saturday paper WA Today, and the mighty, almighty Fremantle Shipping News. How good is Fremantle Shipping News? He also reviews films and television for ABC Radio. Please give a very warm welcome to Mark.
Just recently I was chatting to Curtin University lecturer Glenn Greensmith about the use of social media in the federal election campaign. We quickly got into the televised debates between the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition.
Can you hold the mic a bit closer, please?
A bit closer? Yeah. Glenn was annoyed both by the quality of the debate and the fact that there was only 2 faces on the screen. There are more than 2 parties in this country, Glenn said, and many more voices, so why are they not represented on the television screen? He went on to talk about the government and media working hand in hand to shore up the 2-party system and the need for a change of views, for a range of views, which he believes is the very definition of democracy. Glenn's views chime with those of Barry Jones, who recently said in the Saturday paper that the age of the 2-party system is at an end. I quote Barry, the likeliest result on May 3rd will almost certainly be the last victory for the hegemonic party. For a hegemonic party. All future parliaments will have a 3-way split in the House of Representatives, as is the case already in the Senate, except where Labor and Coalition gang up to pursue their own party interests. I expect the independents, including Teals, will increase their numbers in the House from 10 to 12. So, with the representatives of the 2 major parties generously staying away tonight, thank you Josh and thank you Tate, it's over to you guys, the future of the new, more diverse parliament. So we get to tonight's question. Given that there are several compelling alternatives to two major parties in this election, can you please tell us why we should put you first? We'll kick off with Amy Warne from the Greens.
federal candidate, and I'd like to acknowledge that we're here on unceded Whadjuk Noongar Boodja. I've lived in Hammy Hill for 24 years, and during this time I've been involved in many grassroots community projects and protests. I was at the helm of Hilton Harvest Community Garden for several years, writing grants and organising fairs, but I didn't start that garden. The same is true for North Rio Social Farm, where I work, and I've managed that project there for 5 years, and success has been our main problem there, with major waiting lists 2 years to join. But the same again, I didn't start that. It's not my farm, it's everyone's farm. And I certainly didn't start the protests for Row 8 or Extinction Rebellion, but I threw myself in, got myself arrested, and fought really hard for these causes. I like to think that I have this talent to sniff out awesome things in the community. And if it's good and if it's of good intent, then I'll get in and I'll get behind it and I'll put my shoulder to the wheel and help make really good things happen in our hood and in the world. I like to get involved in things that are bigger than me, not just be the big thing myself. So I've seen the Greens fearlessly defend Palestine, to stand up for climate activists, and to absolutely reject AUKUS, and to point out time and time again the ridiculous system we're in that keeps the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer. Despite the jeers and heckles and insults in Parliament and in the media, the Greens speak up. And I see that and I thought, that is the team for me. Not because it was popular, not because of their electoral chances, but because of the courage and strong moral compass that the Greens have always had. Our strength as a movement comes from our diversity and our rich history. We were founded by Bob Brown, fierce defender of nature, but who at the time was insulted for being a green queen. Here in WA, our founder, Jo Valentine, entered politics as an anti-nuclear activist in the 80s. Yeah, there she is in the flesh. So inspirational. And she entered politics in the 80s when it wasn't really okay to be a young woman in politics, let alone have a house husband. Today, our two federal senators from WA are Senator Dorinda Cox, strong Yamatji Noongar woman, and talented young politician, Senator Jordan Steele-John, who lives with disability. Two people who have spent their careers representing those who Parliament did not want to see represented. Together as a team, we thrash out big ideas, we create detailed policies with expert advice, evidence, and lived experience from our communities. And sometimes that process can be messy and complicated, but I guarantee you, when it's done with good principles, the outcome is inspiring. Our policy positions are based on our founding pillars, which are ecological sustainability, social justice, peace and non-violence, and grassroots democracy. And we rely on these pillars to guide us, and we're accountable to both the electorate and our party members, including hundreds of people from here in Fremantle. We're beholden to nothing else, and we can speak without fear or favour. Not only do we have great diversity and depth in our team, we have ears to the ground as well, all over the country. This is why we have policies not just for Fremantle, but for all of Australia. For example, providing free lunches to school kids, putting dental into Medicare, and providing for renters and first home buyers. Yep. And when it comes to the big existential issues that face our community, like AUKUS, we have the expertise and experience on our team to tackle it head on. We have comprehensive international relations policies and defence policies that prioritise Australia's sovereign control of our defence force, international diplomacy, action on climate change and inequality. The Greens will fight for real structural change on the budget to tax the 1 in 3 companies that currently don't pay any tax, to fix the PRRT so gas companies actually pay some tax, and to tax the billionaires, and to scrap negative gearing and capital gains tax discount for property investors. And with that, we want to wipe all student debt, not just part of it. We want to freeze and cap rents. We want to provide universal and comprehensive healthcare for all. We're sick of seeing the major parties tinker around the edges, and what we need is systemic change. You can't take baby steps in a climate crisis or an inequality crisis. So I believe Fremantle folks are proudly progressive and would not want to see us swing towards the centre. A vote for me is a vote to honour our progressive community. But most crucially of all, and I want to state it loud and clear right now, if I was elected on Saturday in a hung parliament, I would never form government with Dutton. With the balance of power in both the Senate and the lower house, we can get Labor to finally act. We can win this seat, and I will fight for positive progressive change for this community and for the country with my Greens colleagues in Parliament. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Up next, John Bird from the Citizens Party.
Hello, yes, I'm John Bird. I've got a plummy English accent, by the way. I've lived in East Fremantle for 40 years, and I consider myself very much an Australian and a Fremantle person. I'm married. Yep. Okay, I'm married 37 years. I've got 3 adult children. I'm a chartered accountant, FCA. I trained with KPMG before it became KPMG. I owned and ran an environmental consulting business in Fremantle for 19 years, overlooking King Square. King Square is named after King, who was the first rector, by the way, not the King, in case anybody thinks that that's the case. I worked at the Department of Health in public service. I was chair of the board of the Beehive Montessori School in Mosman Park for 9 years. I've been on the board of Fremantle Community Bank for 10 years, something like that. I taught at the Sunday music and the girls' soccer competition to introduce each of those. I used to be a church warden of St John's Church in Fremantle. I organised the Claude Choules plaque, if you ever go in there, and the amazing upgrade of the belfry. I'm chair of public art for Fremantle. Next time you go past the Fremantle Bowling Club, have a look at the weather vane on the top there. It came out of here somewhere, I think. I'm a member of South Fremantle Bulldogs, and can I just say, go the Bulldogs. I manage 2 commercial buildings in central Fremantle, including several shops and offices and so on. What else? I've written poetry and a play about the Catalpa. Member of Bicton Uniting Church. So a lot of people, the reason why I'm going through all this is that I'm pretty well known around the traps. Maybe not in these traps, but those traps over there. Why am I standing? There are many things, one of which, the first of which, the most important of which, I am a parent of 3 adult children, and it would break my heart to stand idly by and watch them be marched off to an American-contrived war to the beat of an American drum. And I can't stand by and do nothing, and I won't stand by and do nothing. And that got me into the world of standing for Parliament, I suppose. And then I started looking at some of the other stuff, you know, that we're a regional power. Australia, a regional power. We should be leading negotiations on Gaza instead of hiding behind the Americans. We need to get out of this poverty economics business. And Amy talked about, tax and things like that. We need to stop thinking in terms of we're being poor and we have to always buy the cheapest. Housing. Oh my word, housing really needs rethinking. It's not about giving people a first owner's grant and you give them $7,000, the price goes up by $7,000. Yeah. It's nonsense. We have to think far more deeply than that. For example, if we're going to bring house prices down, that means that bank loans are going to, their mortgages are going to become uncovered. What are we going to do about that? What about the people who own buildings who suddenly find that their buildings are less? What about zoning? Zoning really needs looking at. Now, I mean, it's ridiculous. I live on a block that's 900 square metres. Yeah, you could fit 9 houses on there. 9 houses, really cheap houses that young people could start on and then maybe move up. We have to really rethink it. It's not about giving people money. There's the spread of wealth in Australia is at a 20-year high. I've got the statistics all here. AUKUS. My goodness me, what on earth are we doing spending $368 billion? That's enough to run NDIS for 10 years. And the issue there is that ScoMo got us into this, and we expected the Labour Party to get us out of it. But no, they're more in bed than the bloody Liberals. Ridiculous. So I started going through this, control of corporates, for example. All our 4 banks, all our 4 big banks, they are at least 80% foreign owned. At least, all of them. The tax failure, there are, as you were saying, companies that should be paying tax, they're not paying tax. Qatar makes 20 times per cubic metre of gas what we make. 20 times. Education, I was talking to somebody at Bunnings the other day. How am I doing for time, by the way?
Well, there's our top guy, it's not here.
Okay, thank goodness. I was talking to this girl at Bunnings at the checkout. She's at uni. She's investing 3 years of her time. She's foregoing $200,000 or something like that. And she's coming out with a loan at the end of $100,000. What does that tell you about how Australia values education? These are all things I feel really passionate about. The supermarket duopoly. Here we are, the most profitable. We've got the 2 big supermarkets. They are the most profitable supermarkets in the world. And yet we've got farmers who are going out of business because they can't cover costs. Really? There was I put a ticket. Wrap it up. Sorry. Okay. All right. Propaganda. We're getting all this government propaganda. It's all carried by the journalists that we have. Yeah. All they do is they pick up the propaganda. Oh yeah, here we are, and then they sprout it on the TV. I mean, it's ridiculous. This business about China's taking over everything. The statistics, I've got the statistics here, published by DFAT, Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade. 44% of income investment, UK and US, 44. China, 1.9. So where's all this stuff coming from? I came here in 1972 as a young man. We had huge industries here. We made buses. We made cars. Now we're just a quarry.
One more point.
Okay, one more. Productivity. Productivity needs national investment. If you want to get better productivity, you need national investment. You need fast railways, and you need to buy productive equipment, stuff like that. So, I mean, all of those things, they all hit me when I started doing this. When I started thinking about this war thing. It just keeps on going, I Party is not either of the left or right, but I'm going to stop.
We'll have plenty of opportunity. We'll have plenty of opportunity after the break. I'm not sure how much further Josh from the Socialist Alliance can take it than John. But Josh, Socialist Alliance. Thank you very much.
Great to hear some of those points there, John. I grew up in Jandakot, IT consultant, done very well, and I'm going to give back. I'm studying to be a teacher, give back to the community. I've been a ski instructor in New Zealand and Canada, and a kite surf instructor back in Woodman Point. So I understand how lucky we are to be live in Fremantle. All the natural beauty that we have here, and the isolation that's helped us during COVID, and which we've now sold to America for $368 billion, and a nuclear waste facility. So, Socialist Alliance will scrap AUKUS, and we'll do. These are things of consequence that. Not just for our generation, but generations to come and generations that have not been born yet. So this is real times to be taking. So we're gonna build a foreign policy based on peace and justice that's independent from America, not just not having nuclear submarines in Australia, in here, but not having anyone's nuclear submarines here. It doesn't benefit us. We're the most resource-rich country in the world, per capita. We're in a cost of living crisis because billionaires, ridiculous billionaires like Gina Reinhardt, who was born into wealth, while stolen generation. I was just talking to people, some of the Yorgers at Sister Kate's, and you know. The difference, the wealth inequality, the opportunity inequality, these are real systemic changes that we need to deal with. We need corporate bribes. We need to get rid of those corporate bribes that are being accepted by the major parties. Any corporate bribe, any from business, requires a return on investment, and they get it back 10,000 times over into not paying royalties on gas. Use that money to build hospitals, schools, roads, houses, and prepare for the next crisis of capitalism. That happens on a regular basis because that's inevitably what happens when we're only looking for profit, not people. People over profit, right? So it's just being fiscally responsible. It's being responsible for ourselves and for the next generation. Like even Norway can do it, but even theocratic, authoritarian countries can do it. You know, look after them. You know, collect the gas royalties, 100 and something billion from Kuwait, and we get 7. Yeah, it's ridiculous. So we're in a climate crisis, a workers' rights crisis. Our unions are under attack. These are our most democratic institutions. It's not just this popularity contest that happens on the 3rd of May. It's our real democracy happens in the workplace, happens on the streets. That's what socialism is about. It's radical democracy. And we need to take back sectors of every sector, but fundamental sectors of the economy and of the community. I just want to say, like, this is what socialism is about, and that's what Socialist Alliance is about. We are grassroots movements. We're on the streets. Every one of our candidates is a grassroots activist. We've been arrested. And every candidate is promised only take an average worker's wage. I'm an IT consultant. We get paid a ridiculous amount of money compared to teachers, to nurses, And we should value these things, else we lose, everyone, the children lose. So we fight. This is what we're about. And, you know, this is a popularity contest that happens on the 3rd of May, you know. It's not only about this. 85 to 90% of legislation is passed by Liberal and Labor together. AUKUS, Gaza, or Palestine, voting for genocide. These are things that they will vote on. So this is not what's going to change those things. It requires every one of us to be out on the streets, and I encourage everyone to join us, because we need to fight in our workplaces, and it needs real radical movement. So no white knight is going to save us. We need a pressure from every one of us. It's up to us. Vote Socialist Alliance on 3rd of May by all means, but join us in the streets. We need to be clear about, if we treat this time with the gravity that we're in, we will, you know, be clear about our principles. We will act with integrity, because in government at the moment there is a lack of integrity, the crisis of integrity. We need to be clear about what we stand for, our policies. You know, housing, negative gearing, capital gains exemptions. We need to be clear about these things 100%, because the temptation to change once we're in Parliament is strong. Capitalism will fight back hard. So, I'll repeat what I said previously, is we need to vote for your principles, vote for what you want, even if you don't get it, rather than vote for what you don't want and get that. Young children give me hope. They're enthusiastic and curious and insightful, and they put many of us to shame. So let's take a responsibility for ourselves, vote responsibly, be fiscally responsible, and let's put people before profit. Thank you.
Finally, before we have a break and get fresh up our glasses, we have Kate Hulett, Community Independent, Kate for Fremantle.
Hello everyone. Here we are again. All right. So I am Kate Hulett, and I am your community independent candidate for Fremantle. And I too am grateful to be living here in Walyalup on Wajak Noongar Budja, and this always was and always will be Aboriginal land. I'm always encouraged at how busy politics in the pub is in Fremantle. It's really reflective of how engaged our community is, and of course why we have so many good choices to represent us. We're really lucky, and we shouldn't let that slip past our awareness. And unfortunately, the two major parties aren't here tonight, obviously, and you're mostly going to hear, I think, from a group of people who generally, vigorously agree with each other. So, last year, the community decided to take participative democracy and representation into their own hands and asked me to run as a community independent candidate. They wanted someone to represent them, as in Fremantle, in Parliament, and to have a say on the big decisions that affect them and their lives. We've seen it across the country, and we want some of that here. We want to win. To that end, my single focus during my campaign is to contend with the 94-year reign of Labor in Fremantle. As a reminder, between them, the Labor and Liberal parties have received the most votes in Fremantle for nearly 100 years. Along with our hundreds of volunteers, I have spent 4 months trying every possible way to talk to people and convince those voters, the people who've traditionally voted Liberal or Labor, that by voting for the two major parties, they're basically saying that everything is okay. But I know, we all know, that people are really pissed off and fed up with politics and politicians and the leadership we have in our country. I've learnt that the only way we are going to get long-term change is by engaging people in politics. Bored people, busy people, disengaged people, angry people, normal people. There is space for us all, and it's absolutely critical that we open the door to them all. As I heard Richard Dennis of the Oz Institute say last night, democracy thrives on high expectations. But that conversely means that democracy dies with low expectations. Our campaign has been quite monumental. Its reach and its cut through from first-time voters to the elderly. People who have previously felt excluded or confused or unsure are now paying attention. They are paying attention. And with attention comes expectations. And we need a united community with high expectations to hold politicians to account. And independent on the crossbench, representing that community, is a good thing. Now, I'm making a guess that most of the people in this room will be voting number one for someone on this panel. And luckily, here in Australia, we have preferential voting. So I hope everyone in this room will choose each of the four of us as your top four candidates, and the three parties who did not bother to attend tonight should receive the bottom three of your preferences. If you want to vote strategically, I would put your number one candidate as the person most likely to break the near 100-year stranglehold that Labor have had on Fremantle. And as a reminder, in the state election, our campaign achieved a 26% swing against Labor, and for federal, I only need about half of that swing to win. And then imagine what we can do on a strong crossbench. A representative of Fremantle in Canberra, not a representative of Labor in Fremantle. To finish, I'd just say that an independent running in this seat sends a very loud and clear signal to Labor that things must change. If Labor loses to an independent, it will be quite radical, and it will demonstrate to the Labor Party that they too, not just the Liberals, are under close examination. All of us should be united in the hope that our government be more ambitious, be more brave, and act more definitively on the issues that we all care about, like North West Shelf, like AUKUS, like the nature positive laws, like housing. And I hope we can unite, put down the weapons that parties normally use to fight each other, and take a risk to open ourselves to a new way forward. Thank you.
But I might save that until after the break. So just take a break, freshen up your glasses, come back. I'm going to give a question to these guys about their political belief, how they were formed. So I'm really interested to see how they became who they were. And then I'm going to open up to the floor and we can have an all-out bun. How long? How long the break? 15 minutes?
15 minutes.
15 minutes, have a drink. Thanks, guys.
We're finding ourselves with ridiculous fees to get an education at university. We have homelessness, like it's so upsetting and disturbing to see that. We should not be having this in our own country. And also the fees to get to see a doctor are crazy. So yeah, they're the things that really have struck me. And as I grow older, all I can see is that there's so many crap decisions that have been made over the last 30 years that have allowed this situation to occur. And so we've got to work tooth and nail, fight every single step to get, there's no silver bullet to fix these things, but we just need to fix all of the crap decisions that have been made in the past.
So John, a person that had inspired you?
Briefly, did you say?
Yes, briefly.
Crikey. When I was 18, I went on a demonstration in London I remember walking through the streets shouting about Margaret Thatcher, who was then Minister of Education, going, "Thatcher out! Thatcher out!" Let me tell you, that was a waste of time. I was chair of the Beehive Montessori School, as I mentioned earlier on, and that was in the electorate of Colin Barnett. And we went to see Colin one day, and I said to him, it must be very good for you to be able to sort of pretty well say what you want to happen. And he said, "John, they don't always listen to me." But the person that I most admire is Barry McKinnon. I was on a board with him. Absolute integrity.
Thanks, John. Nice to meet you. John, anything in your history that turned you to, made the man you are today?
Hey, I actually started out, I came from a conservative family, so I was in the Young Liberals when I was in university. But we always did things with refugees, and there was a cognitive dissonance, right? And going to Thailand and working with refugees, and going overseas and teaching skiing, and seeing how people were treated overseas, and being just really outraged with it. Coming back to Australia and seeing that young people, seasonal workers, were treated far worse. In Australia, I just couldn't believe it. And so I was an organiser for the AWU to organise young, and it's quite difficult. They're seasonal workers, they're there temporarily. And people think, they're just young people, they're having a good time, so we can treat them poorly. Housing insecurity, homelessness, being brought into work and then getting paid nothing. So we ran a campaign and we got wins, small wins, but hard-fought wins. Working with seasonal workers in the in fruit picking, seeing and being a white guy, made the supervisor, and being told they're all afraid of losing their jobs. So we want to keep it that way. This is what I was told, and it's just disgraceful. Those are such wonderful people. That's what changed me, and I'll just say my political hero, or was Aung San Suu Kyi. And then, even she, I don't have a political hero anymore, and I've learnt not to, because she did nothing during ethnic cleansing. So, yeah, thank you.
Thanks. I often say that, in hindsight, you can look back and see that everything you have done is or was political, even if you didn't intend it to be. And, having been someone that went to uni and still has a full HECS debt, and then worked for an enormous public transport operator, I own a small business that makes no money, and I have been unwaged for many, many years. I do contract work and agency work in order to pay for my expensive hobby shop. And I spend time in my shop talking to, hundreds of people from all walks of life, and that can quite, politicise you. I worked for Space Market, that was activating empty buildings, and then dealing with the crisis of commercial ownership in our cities. I've worked for festivals and the Biennale, lots of arts and creative industries, which is political. More recently, the thing that really enraged me, that tipped me over into talking about independent candidacy, was the decision about the police station in Fremantle, and how no matter how much we talked about it and enraged about it, the politicians weren't going to listen to us. They didn't even care what we said, and that's when the conversation started about, we need to find someone that's going to represent us better.
So the police station,
that was a real catalyst, yeah, of absolute fury.
Thank you.
Very well done. After this.
Questions on the floor? So
also a question on the floor. Maybe I can direct my first question to Joe Valentine, because I haven't seen Joe since 1984, when as a young man I wrote some ads for something called the Nuclear Disarmament Party. And Peter Garrett came over, and it was an exciting time, Joe. And I just got to ask you a question. What do you think about now compared to the 80s, when we had that, I guess, the threat of nuclear destruction, wasn't it? That was driving you then.
And I'm afraid it's right back on the agenda again. You know, we are living in extremely dangerous times. The climate crisis and the nuclear crisis, the threat of the use of nuclear weapons, and of course they're connected issues. And so I'm thrilled to bits to see people stepping up and coming out of the woodwork, it seems to me, younger people than me, to have a go, because it was very exciting back in 1984. And we got an unexpected sort of victory. I was called the accidental senator, and I quite liked that, because I had no ambition to be a politician as such, but they were amazing years, full of frustration, but thankfully at times very funny as well. So I hope everybody can enjoy being a candidate and have lots of fun doing it. And thank you for putting yourselves forward. I think it's a big thing to put yourself forward.
Hello, my question is to Kate. How does participatory democracy work in making a decision about the Wally Hagan Basketball Centre?
I'm glad you asked that. First of all, I think that my statements about Wally Hagan were mischaracterised a little bit in the article by Amy, because I believe that we can have a beautiful outcome that protects the local area and delivers something wonderful for the community as well. It's not exclusive. We don't just have to have a big Bunnings tilt-up for every building that we build here in WA. The deal at Wally Hagan is there's a portion of money from the state government.
Sorry, that's actually not the question that I asked you.
Okay.
How did you conduct participatory democracy to make that announcement?
Oh. The announcement, right. So I've asked, I've been in support of federal funding to complete the amount of funding that's required in order to then create the consultation with the local community. So the consultation process hasn't started until they have the money to then go out and create the plans and do all the rigorous consultation with the community. So that can't happen until the money has been pledged by the federal government. So the state government has, the local government has, but the federal hasn't yet. So once that comes in, then the proper rigorous community consultation can happen, like it does once the plans have been drawn up.
Pardon me, Mark. I think Amy wants to respond as well.
Yeah, thanks about the Wally Hagan studio. I wrote that little letter to the editor because I was really annoyed that there was not even a nod from Kate for any of the work that has been done on establishing a plan for that Row 9 corridor to turn it into a nature corridor, to make it something that is special and beautiful. And, like these developments can be completely inspirational, and there's a plan in part of the Row 9 corridor is actually earmarked for housing, and there's a beautiful, inspirational, visionary plan to get high density housing in there that will also keep a lot of nature, will keep that nature strip, that nature corridor intact through that section, and it will also allow for connectivity, active transport, all of these things. It's a beautiful vision, and the vision that the council has put forward was really not visionary at all. It was just a concrete pad over an Aboriginal site, and it reduces the nature corridor to nothing more than the width of a car parking bay. So you need 15 metres wide of a nature strip to keep that corridor intact for genetic diversity of mammals, etc. So it was a really awful plan, and actually the council has had a pretty comprehensive lobbying campaign to get candidates and MPs to commit that funding, and it was done by the basketball community, and in this case it was successful, and Kate has made that commitment to fund the basketball stadium. And it absolutely needs a whole lot more community consultation, because with that consultation, while it might be messy and complicated and competing values and competing agendas, that is how you get the magic. That is how you get a really good visionary plan for the whole community, not just one sector of the community.
And that's what I said has to happen with the money. A full plan and consultation will have once the federal government has provided the money. So yes, visionary, great, keep biodiversity, absolutely. That is absolutely what I would want, and I've got a track record in fighting for good outcomes. I hate car parks. If anyone knows anything about me, I've just won $100,000 to de-pave William Street in Fremantle through town teams. It's not something that I take lightly, that consultation. I mean, the whole point of why I'm here is on behalf and for the community. I'm not just... I don't have a pocket of money with $20 million in it. I'm not like just walking. Oh, I've spoken to lots of people, and I've had hundreds of emails in from people asking for the funding. Wally Hagan was built 52 years ago, and it's not fit for purpose anymore, and there's a huge... Basketball is the fastest growing sport in Australia. There's a huge demand for it from kids, and I think that there's opportunity to do both there.
We've got, I'm sorry, I think we've got Ian and then two in the front. Can I ask, when you ask a question, please stand up so the speakers can see you. You'll find this very humanising.
Hi, good to see you all here. The common theme obviously is that neither Labor nor Liberal has got it right, and part of that is process and not listening, but part of it is specific issues, and on those specific issues it seems to me a common link across the four of you is an absolute differentiation from the two major parties: AUKUS, housing, any number of other environment, any number of other issues. Now, being realistic, if any of you were to win this election, it would be on the back of preferences from one or other of those major parties, and yet you have some very deep differences with them. How would you approach and talk with Liberal and or Labour voters to make sure that at the following election you didn't have to rely on preferences from people who were fundamentally opposed to you?
So you want to work with Liberals?
Yeah, we won't work with Liberals at all, and on preferences we, so just to be clear, we've preferenced the Socialist Alliance second, and then after that we've preferenced Kate, and then after that the Labor Party. So essentially we want your number one vote, and then we want you to put Labor above Liberal. So that's what we want to do. We'd be more than happy to form government with the Labor Party and get them to work really, really hard, but absolutely we would not be negotiating with the Liberal Party. But just on preferences, if I could pick up what Kate said about how we really want to have high expectations for Parliament. We want, for our parliamentarians, we want to hold, we want better than the big two parties. So if you want better than the big two parties, that means voting for someone who may not necessarily get in, or may not, you don't have to vote for the fastest horse in the race. You vote for the candidate who you think has got the best policies, not the one who you think is most likely to get in. And you vote for them on policy, on morals, on courage, on conviction, and on how you think they'll do actually as a parliamentarian when they get in. You do not, and should not vote for the one that you think will get in. That's what we're against, isn't it? Like, we don't want Labor or Liberal to get in, all of us here. So let's hold that through when we're considering all of the candidates.
John?
That's a good question. I've spoken to many people, and they are angry and disappointed. And whether that translates into votes is another matter. I think so you're saying, how are we going to get these people across next time? At the moment, there is a ban on providing the Citizens Party with broadcasting airtime put on by the big parties because they're running scared. And hopefully we shall be more out in the open next time. Because I'm doing early polling at the moment, and I can see that those people who expressed their anger and disappointment are still voting Labour.
So, Kate, working with you're the one in the firing line on being independent. You've obviously been dwelling on this, so how are you going to work with the various parties?
I mean, my sense is, and all the polls and everyone says that it's going to be, I mean, the danger at the moment is that we're on track for a Labour majority, and then there's no crossbench, there's no change. What we should really be gunning for is not to allow that to happen, so that we can get some change and hold them to account and make them deliver. The question on negotiation, you know, I think in that first 2 weeks is going to be, after the election, going to be the most crucial. And, you know, the point of the independent individuals is not to align with any party in order to go into a negotiation and best negotiate for that community. And we will go forward with the things that we care about: North West Shelf, AUKUS, nature positive laws, proper housing reform. And if, you know, there's deals to be done on those things, then we can use that will improve the lives of people in Fremantle, then, you know, it's a really good position to be in. And I think that that's powerful.
Couple things. Preferences tell us about yourself. Your policies tell you one thing. Your preferences tell you who you're aligned with, where your values align, and we need that. That's so important. To be clear, Labor and Liberal hide a lot of their true alignment. They're all pretty much actually captured by capital, and they take those. So it's so important to tell the voters who you align with in your values. But I'll just reiterate what Amy was saying as well, and that we're all intelligent political people here. We use our preferences, so we vote for our values. That's the most important thing. We're in this problem with Labor and Liberal because people are voting for the main horse in the race. That's not the right way. Vote for your values. Socialist Alliance, we're socialists. We are about dismantling many of these corporate structures that have captured the major parties. And if we give them an inch, they will recapture it, so we need to fight.
Thank you. I think this was almost answered in the responses that we had just then, but I just really want clarity. So I've been watching closely, we're political animals here, right? So I've been watching closely about announcements that have come out, and it seems that the Climate 200 funded candidates won't rule out helping Dutton and the Liberal Party for government in the case of a minority government. So I'd really love just a clear yes/no answer from each of the candidates. Will you publicly commit to not supporting Dutton and the Liberal Party to form government?
We'll ask Kate, I guess. She's the lady in the firing line.
What a surprise. I'd say the first rule of negotiation is don't call out options. Well, you're not going to get one from me. My position is to represent the community, and that's what I do. Exactly.
Sorry, yes or no? So use your fucking brain.
Yeah.
Yes or no, just say it. Why don't you say it?
Wait, who just said use your fucking brain? Okay,
Also,
okay, whoever just said that, please dial it down, let's be respectable.
Can I just say one other thing? What's most unhelpful is the small parties fighting with each other when Liberals and Labor are continually laughing at us, and if they show up here and we're all here fighting amongst each other, fighting in the weeds. It's absolutely unproductive and unhelpful.
Yes or
No.
no?
No. I'll go where I can do the most damage.
So it's important to understand where people stand if you're going to vote for them. So in this case, you can be sure that we will not form a government with Dutton because we do not want that nasty, punch-down, Trumpy, divisive, nation-wrecking person running our country, and that is our strong position. However, you don't need to make a decision about who you should vote for. I'm going to tell you who I would form a government with, and that's our civic duty to make a decision when we go into the ballot box. And we do not know whether Kate will or won't form a government with Dutton. So how are you going to, like, you just have to, it's like voting for a black box. You don't know what's going to happen.
Is everybody ready for some rubber dogs? Yeah? Mr. Dobbs.
Thank you very much for standing as candidates. My question is about homelessness. I think it's been really underrepresented in the discussions about housing. My son, along with lots of others, are struggling, but at least they say, look, we're not going to starve, we've got a shit rental, but that's what it is, and I can't imagine what it's like to be homeless. What concrete steps would you take? What policies are you presenting to reduce the number of homelessness people and to support those who are struggling with homelessness?
John, you have some very sharp words on housing, so kick answer nice and sharp.
Okay. Well, mental health is a big deal. Another thing is the structure of housing. Housing is not allowed to be provided by the council, and it must be provided by the state. But that means that if the council provides the council has to wear the problem of homelessness, but is unable to provide any sort of accommodation that doesn't reach the building standards, BSA, Building Standards of Australia. So the council could provide some sort of accommodation for homeless people, but doesn't. And I think that needs to be worked on.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we have pretty great policies on housing in general, so freezing and capping rents, compelling banks to offer reasonable rates of mortgages as like an immediate fix. And then we have the policy to scrap capital gains tax and negative gearing. It's really important structural change, right? So that will raise something like $178 billion, which we would then put into a publicly owned building developer to build more houses by the government for sale or rent. So that's a really comprehensive plan, addresses supply and demand. But on homelessness specifically, we would be investing $12.7 billion into homelessness. So that would be providing wraparound services and supporting organisations like we have here, the amazing St Pat's, doing amazing work. And we also, they absolutely need to be supported because their workload has increased like threefold over the last 3 years. It's an incredible amount of work that they are doing. And they need those services. Specific issues, as John alluded to, around mental health and also around providing for women's refuges. So these are intersections of, problems that we as a society are facing that the big parties have not addressed. So we'd really be taking that on board. The other thing, also crucial, is that we have policies to raise the rate of Centrelink. So we have people who are living in poverty here because, they've been kicked in the face by life somehow and they're on Centrelink, they have no opportunity to work, and so we need to be supporting these people so they don't end up on the streets. It's a really important thing.
Thanks for that, Amy. And I'll add to that is we need to regulate all this Airbnbs around. And all the vacant properties that are just owned by property developers that are just waiting for the property value to go up, and they're vacant. And we need to add a tax on that to say if you leave it vacant, we don't have a housing crisis, we've got plenty of housing. Just, it needs to be made available, so we need to regulate that.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing, the poverty issue is pervasive, and of course, in Fremantle, I think rents have gone up 65% in the last 5 years, which is outrageous, and obviously our wages haven't gone up that much. We've got lots of broad kind of policies on this, which is changing the conditions so it's easier for first-home buyers to get in, and that's a whole look at the tax structure, looking at supply and that idea of having the defence housing model, but for nurses and teachers and people living in closer proximity to towns, and that would be government owned. As Amy said, we need more services for people fleeing domestic violence. That's causing a lot of homelessness in our towns, and no grounds evictions, which we still allow here in WA, is a real issue. Coupled with the fact that we are not building more social homes and having big, empty sites like the Beaconsfield, the major parties are in lockstep about not doing anything over this, and I think that there is plenty of things to be done at once. They're big things and they're courageous, hard things, but they just need to, have the push to do them.
We've got two questions back here. I saw somebody put up their hand before. I don't know who it was. I'm not ignoring you. I've forgotten who you are. Over there, who put up their hand previously? Madam, was it you? Was you? Okay, thank you. Okay, I will get to you. Rachel Pemberton.
There has been some discussion and speculation that this could end up being a minority government. Last time there was a minority government was 2010. I was very fortunate to be working in Parliament House for a senator at that point and watched minority government happen, and it actually passed a record amount of legislation. Some of the wins that the Greens secured as part of that deal for minority government was the National Rental Affordability Scheme, which is subsequently dismantled by Tony Abbott, and the price on pollution, which was a carbon tax that actually did bring down carbon emissions. So my question to you is, if you are fortunate enough to win a seat on the crossbench, what one policy would be your priority in negotiations to form minority government?
Mine is less of a policy than a project. It's a Northwest Shelf and stopping that from going ahead.
Scrapping AUKUS needs to be at the very, very top for the people of Fremantle.
Mine would be a post office bank. It's a bank that you and I would own. And like the Commonwealth Bank used to be, the Commonwealth Bank financed 2 world wars, and at the moment we have the Big Four. There is not one of the Big Four who is less than 80% foreign owned.
Thank you. I've never had to negotiate with the government on how to form I've never had to negotiate in the hung parliament to work out how we're going to form government. But I can tell you I'll be seeking advice from my Greens colleagues in Parliament. But for me personally, I'll give you 3 policies that I think are really important. One.
Sorry.
Really? I think it's a stupid question. Like, why does that have to be 1?
Because we don't want to hear go on.
Okay, look, I think the quickest and the easiest one is to get dental and mental health into Medicare. That's really important.
Thank you everyone for your presence here tonight. It's been most informative. Now, I've got a problem. I hear community consultation bandied around a lot. I don't know what you mean by it or how you plan to do it. Now, when I was lecturing in community development, we had various models of how it would be done, and it didn't rely on people sending you emails. They had very specific techniques. Now, I understand the money is not there to do it at the moment, but what sort of model would you use to consult the community?
I would first of all reflect back on the work that Voices for Fremantle did over the past year to kind of go out to the community and do a big listening project and capture all the feedback from all the community about what they wanted. And that's quite a rigorous and constructed model. And that was how we knew as a broad community that there was a desire for new representation. So that's an example of consultation that's already happened, and that was quite successful. There are different models, as you know, across the world, like a citizens' assembly, different types of participatory democracy that works quite well. And I think that we would, I mean, obviously I'm just a candidate, so I haven't set the whole thing up yet, but if I got in, then we would look at the best models with the best outcomes. I mean, there's things like jury duty, which is a citizens' assembly, a little assembly that decides on quite big decisions. And that can go much broader. In other places across the world, there's nice models that we could take, and I look forward to figuring out which ones individually or as a combination that will work the best to capture the most feedback from the most people and try and get to them in whatever way they're going to receive information, you know, because it's hard to talk to everyone. Internet, newspapers, TV, you know, you've got to kind of try everything so people have the best chance at contributing to their town and their futures.
I'd like to answer that one actually. So again, it's like I was speaking to, I'll say Josh Wilson about serious issues, and he's going back and asking, we need to consult the community. That was on funding, or whether we should defund UNRWA, sending it to food to starving children. These are things, so I just want to distinguish between what needs community consultation and what you would entrust a candidate to have principles about. And I'll say that we are, again, grassroots. We're on the ground in LGBT communities, on Stop AUKUS, Stop Nuclear. We're in the community, and the exact model, I don't know, but we are there and we are on the ground and we are talking to people, and that's what we're about. Thanks.
I'm actually quite concerned about what I'm hearing here, because there's two sorts of representation. There's representation where one conveys the message from the community and does the bidding of the community in Parliament, in this case, or that you are selected and then you go off and do you act as the representative and you don't necessarily convey the messages. Now, as far as I'm concerned, I'm going to be elected as a national development person. I'm not here for you people, I'm sorry. But it's about national development. If we were talking about the local council here, yeah, sure, I get it. If we were talking about the state government, yeah, sure, I get it. But this is national development. And so, I mean, I see myself going there, sure, being active in the community. I am active in the community here. Yeah, I know, you know, I don't know what you're thinking and you're thinking, but you talk to a lot of people. But one is thinking about national development, not, oh, how much money can we get for the bridge over there? That's my view.
Thanks for the question. I think the most important thing really in community consultation is to be honest about your motivation for doing it, because I'm pretty sure we'd all be aware that some community consultation is conducted in order to tick a box. So good community consultation is when you go into it with a completely open mind and are completely open to radically rethinking your own personal agenda and views going forward. So that's like, there's a hierarchy of models. I don't have them all in my head, but some of them lend themselves to that tick of the box, and some of them lend themselves to completely reworking projects. So you know, like as a member of parliament, I would absolutely be looking to stay completely open-minded. So some models are better at nutting out different problems. For example, like a kitchen table conversation, which I knew they did that with the voice referendum. I think the Voices did that as well, and that's one way, a really great way to like recruit volunteers and to canvass some, you know, sections of the community. But it's really just having conversation with your mates and your mates of your mates. Like, you need to get, if you want proper consultation, you need to go further than that. So it's really important to recognise peak bodies in whatever issue it is that you're seeking consultation on. And to make sure that that is dealt with. One recent example of really, really, really bad community consultation, which I only found out about because I went to a council meeting, was that the submarine mob had actually run a pop-up shop in Cockburn Central for everyone, for the whole community to get informed on the AUKUS project. And I was told about that when I was at the council meeting, putting forward a delegation for AUKUS to say, hey, we need more consultation. And the deputy mayor of Cockburn said, well, did you know that we've done it? And I'm like, well, no. And that means it's pretty shit consultation, right? So, you know, there's more than one way to do consultation.
There's one more question over here, but with Sam and with PS from this gentleman, and then you had your hand up, and then I believe you'll probably be the last person available. With 25 minutes to go, if you can ask a question of one or two candidates rather than all four, that'd be extremely helpful.
Amy, you said that the Greens will be forming a government with the Labor Party, and Labor is very pro-AUKUS. I'm wondering if you could tell us what the Greens are actually going to do in that consultation time. I mean, the important time isn't after the election and when you've made that decision to join with them, but when you're actually talking to the Labor Party about how that's going to work, what will you be putting forward about AUKUS?
Thank you. It will be, thanks. Yeah, it's a really good question. It's such a crucial issue for our community. So the Greens would be absolutely seeking to scrap the AUKUS arrangement and to rethink our international affairs and our alliances. So this is a really, it's an incredibly difficult issue to broach and to, it's difficult, but we need to be seeing the international relations as the way it is now, not the way we want it to be, not the way it has been in the past, but the way it is now. So they're the things that we'd be looking at.
Can I just say I'm asking a specific question? Like, we can all talk and say that I'm hearing it ad nauseum everywhere, not just politically. But AUKUS is happening right now. This is something that affects us more than anything. Climate change, yes, but AUKUS right now. But I'm asking you specifically, when you're talking to the Labor Party, at that period of time when you're ready to form government, what will your demands be?
Well, we would be demanding that we scrap the AUKUS arrangement.
Specific enough for you?
I'm not, like we would.
Would you use a balance of power?
Yeah, we would be negotiating really hard on this because it is such a crucial issue. Yeah.
Is that clear?
Well, I'm not
we're not in government. We wouldn't be able to say,
exactly.
You know, we wouldn't be able. I can't, obviously, I can't promise that if you elect me, we would not have AUKUS anymore. I can't promise that. Well, no one can promise you that.
That's what I'm saying. You're not going to be in government, so basically, you're being alongside Labor says to me that you're okay to go with AUKUS because Labor's not going to.
Well, the thing is, what's our choice? We could side with Dutton.
Well, same thing.
Well, yeah, no, it's not exactly the same thing. I think there's a lot of agitation within.
Yeah, why be with either? Yeah.
Hey, your little friend got to badmouth over here, so let her.
For the defence of Australia to replace.
Yeah, can I answer that?
And I totally, with all of you, but it does worry me if you say, all four of you are saying, yes, scrap AUKUS, but none of you are saying what is the policy to then defend.
Can I answer that?
Okay, so the question is, what do we do if we scrap AUKUS for our defence arrangements for Australia in the future?
I mean, the first thing to say is that Australia has no enemies of its own. All our enemies are Americans or, of America or of Britain. And therefore we are not a sovereign nation because we are not standalone. The AUKUS submarines, which haven't been designed yet, are also too big to go around the northern part of Australia, so they're not suitable for patrolling our oceans. They're long-range weapons, which we also don't need to protect our country. We could do with...
What's the policy? It's not the question, what's the policy there? You know what the AUKUS deal is, what's the policy?
How can that be? One was one.
Yeah, so we need to look at alternate submarines that are diesel propelled. We're not going to be Switzerland, but our main defence issue is climate change and the impact on climate refugees and floods and fire, and we need to be spending much more money in that area and much less money on defence.
How do we defend the country? So scrapping AUKUS does not make us more... AUKUS in itself makes us less safe. We are the main perpetrators of terrorism around the world. Scrapping AUKUS by itself makes us safer. It makes people in Fremantle safer. We need to build a foreign policy based on peace and justice. That means forming being good neighbours to East Timor, so that our other neighbours can trust us, like Solomon Island is looking elsewhere. That makes sense, because we need to be good neighbours. That's how you build a true defence, through mutual respect and ties in economy. That's right, everyone.
Thank you. So the Greens have a specific policy on how we would defend our nation. It's totally naive to think that you can scrap AUKUS and have nothing to replace it to defend our nation. So our view is that our defence force, which we need, must be under our own control. It must be sovereign. We must have complete control over it with regard to manufacture, technology, operation, etc. We don't want to be at the behest of another country saying, yes, you can use it, no, you can't, which is possibly the situation with AUKUS. So we would be seeking to manufacture in Australia weapons ourselves. So that would include missiles and drones, and those missiles and drones would be for short to medium range. They would not be for international conflict, they would be for defence. So currently our defence force is for attack. You're right, Kate, those submarines that are a part of the AUKUS deal are for attack. They're to attack what we perceive as our enemy at the moment, which is China, and the Greens do not think we have any need for this attitude. There are other countries that are more dangerous than China. I can tell you, for example, the United States. So look, we would want to be in control of our defence force, and the plan would be to use $4 billion of that $370 billion. I think it's actually gone up $8 billion in the time I've been campaigning this AUKUS arrangement. So in addition to that plan to be in control of our own defence force, we would also seek to, as Josh said, make friendly relations with a range of our close neighbours. That's really important, and we've got a great opportunity now where Trump has ripped out all the aid from our neighbours. We've got a chance now to get in there, provide that aid, make great relationships with our neighbours. We would also be seeking to, as Kate said, deal with climate change. It's a huge security issue. Our biggest actually security issue is climate change. And also, equally as important, is to deal with inequality in our own country. Because if people have boots on their throat and are seeing other people flourish from millionaires into billionaires, and you're struggling to put food on the table, or you're ending up homeless, you lose trust in our institutions in Australia. If you lose trust in your institutions, you're more vulnerable to misinformation. And if you're vulnerable to misinformation, then that all goes to shit, doesn't it? That's what's happened in America.
What would you like me to say? Well, I agree with Amy and Josh, but getting out of AUKUS doesn't mean that we don't have allies. Everybody has allies. The Chinese have allies. Myanmar has allies. And we need to have allies just the same. But what we have to watch is that our leaders, Richard Marles, I heard the other day, you see, we're paying $368 billion really to make whatever, who give or take a few billion, in order to get absolute certainty that the Americans would be here if push came to shove. Well, blow me down, we've suddenly got a tariff from the Americans of 10%, a friendly tariff of 10%, and Richard Marles, the Deputy Prime Minister, won't put the submarine deal on the table. He's just pretending that it hasn't happened.
Okay. I can see the glassiness glinting in some of your eyes. So here's what we're going to do. When you find a question or answer is going too long, start a point.
We'll see if we can get the questions to one person and move it on, okay? Pick out one.
Okay, yeah, hi, I'm Sam. I'm very involved in Unionists for Palestine, and my partner Janet is a founding member of Jews for Palestine Western Australia. Now, in our opinion, there's no question that unless we can stop Australia's direct involvement in what we regard as apocalyptic genocide violence, the possibility of creating a better world for all is not possible. We've given up writing to our local member, who sends us 8-paragraph responses telling us how sad it makes him. Makes us sad too, I can guarantee that. But each time he would get the gold medal for not answering the actual question that we have put to him about concrete action. So my question to one or any of the candidates...
Choose somebody.
Okay. No, I'll let you choose. My question is this, and maybe you can throw it around. What have you done to confront this reality? 2, what are your policies, if you get elected, that you'll be pushing the Parliament to adopt? And 3, in the event that we will still have a Labor-Liberal majority in the lower house, what will your strategy be to help us push change in Australian foreign policy?
Firstly, the Foreign Minister is a senator, and a lot of this will be dealt with in the Senate. Secondly, the Citizens Party is absolutely 100% against this genocide that's going on in Gaza. It is a very, very difficult thing to provide any sort of negotiation on. It's really, really hard. Having said that, Australia should be leading the negotiations.
PS, Mr. Gentleman, and then
okay, fire away.
Thank you for your patience. Yes.
Fire away.
I hesitate to reopen this question, but I think it's really important. And I do so with some compassion. To those who said that they would never negotiate or engage or talk with the Liberal Party under any circumstances, the question for me is, what does that say to, well, what do you think that says to Liberal voters in our electorate, which are the second largest voting group in the electorate? But also, how do you stop the Labor Party completely taking you for granted if you've said you're not under any circumstances going to form government with anyone else or negotiate with anyone else?
Amy?
Who's the question for?
Well, to anyone who said
No.
no.
Everybody who said yes.
So we've said, we have said that we wouldn't form government with Dutton and would do anything to keep him out of government. And I think it's fine to say what your convictions are, and I think it's important that Liberal voters know that as they're going into the ballot box. They need to know who we would and wouldn't form government with, and if it is a hung parliament, that they still need us. I mean, it's all, Albo's already said that he's not really going to talk to us that much, but we would try, and if we get the numbers, then that's how you get the power, isn't it? So.
I mean, we're not going to form government with Dunn, but if there's a bill going through that says scrap AUKUS, of course we're going to sign on, right? This is what it means to just be based on principles. I don't know if that was obvious, but thank you. And we need to cut two-way ties with Israel. Thank you for the question, Sam.
Yeah, back on that, I think having the voice to talk about stuff and air stuff in Parliament is really the benefit of having, independence in government. But we have to be able to talk to all voters. We have to be a broad church. We have to bring people along with us, and it's at our expense if we discount, doing work to improve our country and improve Fremantle. It's our job to do that, to work on behalf of the people. So I think it's really important, and I truly believe that we have to bring everyone along with us. So we cannot just tell people that they are excluded from the work we're doing.
Just in general terms, if I could talk about community independence, and it's an amazing phenomenon that has changed the landscape of Australian politics, and it's been a net gain. I believe it's been a net gain for our country, and it's been a disruption. And a lot of those independents say, look, it's an option for people when they will not vote for the Greens, so we need to give them another option. And first of all, I think that's a bit of a furphy, because people do vote for the Greens, and Brisbane went Green, 3 seats over. So it can happen that we can change it. We don't necessarily need a lighter version for people to vote for. So in a very progressive electorate like we have here in Fremantle, that it can be that people who would vote for the Greens then vote for Kate, and it can have the overall effect of making our electorate just that little bit more conservative.
Hello, my name's Sam and I'm going to keep this very quick. Amy's talked about honouring our progressive community. We had an email from the Greens on Wednesday 29th of January that threatened in clause 11.3 to 11.5 that any Greens member who volunteered for an independent would have their membership cancelled. According to your own clause, that's a lie. That was brought up with the Greens and I was assured that an apology would be issued, which never was. We've also had in the state campaign, senior Greens leadership personally phone calling multiple people and berating them. Yes, I do. This is leading to personal phone calls berating people for appearing at other progressive candidate events. So I asked Amy, which she quoted at the beginning of this, that she's going to honour our progressive community. How is this behaviour and standing here and discounting a year worth of table conversations that weren't just mates of mates, many of who are Greens members, many of who are Greens donators and supporters? So is it okay, like when they're on your side, but as soon as it's a progressive in another direction, it's not okay? So I want to know, how is that behaviour honouring our progressive community? Because the reality is a Liberal candidate that sat outside the polling place for 2 weeks got more votes than the Greens. We, all of us together, we're not enough. We need Liberal and Labor voters, and this behaviour is toxic and it's not going to help anyone if we're feeling angry towards other progressive candidates and downvoting them below Labor. We're going to end up with the same shit. It's horrible. And I want to know how that behaviour is honouring our progressive community.
So I think it's pretty common for parties to not like their members to be actively campaigning for other
Is it common
people.
for them to lie according to their own clause? Did you need to change your clause?
Oh, look, I'm not familiar with all the details of what was emailed and what wasn't. I'm not quite sure how to answer that, to be honest. Like, if people want to campaign for another party, that's fine, but they probably need to not be a member of another party. Like, I think that's pretty.
How is that behaviour helpful? How are you honouring the progressive community? That's the question.
Anyone can support whoever they want to support. We're just saying that we would prefer our members not to be campaigning actively against a candidate for which they are a party member.
Last question.
Hello, I'm speaking. Hi, my name is Celia, and I've got one question, and I'd like an answer from all of you on this. And it may be a trivial question when we're thinking about existential crisis because of global warming, but I want to know what each one of you think about live sheep exports.
The Citizens Party, their policy is to continue it. And this isn't very popular with townies, but it's very, very, very popular in the country. And there's a reason for it, actually, that sheep come on, they're ready. I don't know enough about it, but they're ready all at once. The abattoirs here cannot handle it. Secondly, the recipient countries often don't have refrigeration, and so it should continue to keep the farmers in business. And it's not bullshit. And
New Zealand banned it, and they're still surviving. They're doing quite well, exactly. So your point is
no.
New Zealand's going very well.
The Citizens Party is for providing food for mankind.
Yeah, I'm from a family background, a farming background, and we did get reviews in the country, but I campaigned out in Collie for The Voice, and, hard, because I believe this, and you get lots of weird, different opinions from us, different opinions,
And it's the same in the rural communities. We've got to ban live exports because it's cruel and inhumane. And real farmers have a problem with it. I have a problem of a sheep that's tipped over and dies from a cruel death. And so real farmers stand for this, stand with rural communities, and let's keep the sheep in Australia.
Yeah, I support the ban as well that's due to come in 2028. WA is the only place that's still exporting live sheep, and there is more, I think there's only one ship that's moving them now. There's no more ships coming to our ports, and there's more sheep going from Romania than there are from Australia now. What I am focused on is making sure that money that's being pledged to the farmers to ensure that their communities are able to maintain their kind of thriving nature is upheld and expanded if required. You mentioned abattoirs, and I heard that 2 have been recently closed down since the ban was announced. We need to strengthen that stuff so we can process meat in our own country and package it and send it across if we need, or we use it for our own country. But yeah, personally, in answer to your question, I support the ban.
Yeah, the Greens also support the ban, but what's clear is that the transition to get farmers through this period has been handled woefully by the Labor Party. So absolutely we need to get more abattoirs up and running to deal with the spring glut of lambs. That's when farmers get the most money for their product, if we can call sheep a product. So they need to be able to get their product onto market quickly during spring, and the best way to do that is to build abattoirs. But the other point I will make is that the Greens also have policies to scaffold farmers in other ways. So it's really important that we deal with supermarkets and the duopoly, break up that duopoly so that there's not farmers who are signing awful contracts they're just like, farmers are getting completely screwed down by supermarkets, and we're getting screwed down at the other end. So guess who's making the money in the middle? Like, the Greens have policies to deal with that. And also farmers are at the coalface of climate change. So we want to be absolutely supporting farmers through that transition. And one thing that we're just announced recently was that we would help farmers electrify their farms so that they are not dependent on the grid and on fossil fuels.
Okay, thank you very much for tonight. I'm going to give the candidates just a minute each to do a final pitch. I know let's see if we can up your game, bring it, distill it into 60 seconds on why this group of swinging voters should vote for you guys.
Right, the citizen. Sorry, I'm not a teacher. The Citizens Party is trying to get a new party into Parliament because the existing parties, and I'm afraid that includes the Greens, are too cosy and comfortable together. When they do, and they will get somebody into the House of Reps and probably several people into the Senate, all I can say is the big parties won't know what hit them. Hang on, and before I finish, I just have to say happy birthday to Louis over there, and to me.
Why should we vote for the Socialist Alliance? Because we're a grassroots movement, we're on the ground, we stand by our principles. You'll know how I'm going to vote because that's who we are. But join us after the elections. Join us in the streets, fighting for people who can't vote, people who haven't been born yet, and that means AUKUS. That means not having a military that's fighting over resources as climate change happens. This is what we are. Vote based on your principles. Vote for a minor party. Use your preferences. Thank you. That's it. Thank you.
I'm going to reiterate what I said at the start. We need a circuit breaker for the political stalemate that we've got here. I hope everyone in this room will choose the 4 of us as your top 4 candidates, And the three parties who did not bother will receive your bottom three preferences. Strategically, I would put your number one candidate as the person most likely to break this 100-year stranglehold that Labor have had on Fremantle. And as I said earlier, in the state election, our campaign achieved a 26% swing against Labor, and we just need half of that to win the seat of Fremantle. Let's get someone on a powerful crossbench that will demand action from Labor for Fremantle, a representative of Fremantle in Canberra and not a representative of a party in Fremantle.
Thanks everyone. Look, I just wanted to end by saying that the Greens, we have some really strong policies. They've been developed over many decades even, with some fantastic experts. We have the depth of the party, we have diversity in our party that can come up with policies and solutions that are really, really necessary. The Greens are also able to get in there and to break up the two-party system and to provide an alternative point of view in Parliament also. I would encourage you, when you go in to vote for who you think will do the best job and who has policies and conviction and history and like a way of doing things that speaks to you. It's not about who is going to get the most votes, or if we wanted to vote for the ones who are going to get the most votes, we would vote for Labor or Liberal, but none of us here want to do that. We want to vote for the one who's going to do the best job, with the best policies, most comprehensive ones, with the most experience behind them. Thank you.
Thank you to our candidates and Warne of the Greens. Birthday boys on there. Young Liberal turned Socialist. And candidates in front of a pair of glasses on the whole election campaign capability.
I'll hold your attention for one more moment. Round of applause for our MC, first time, Mark Naglazas. I'm going to ask our speakers to stay behind for a photo, for you to stay behind for friendship. There's unlikely to be a politics of a pub next month, who knows why?
I do.
Why?
We're getting married!
We're getting married! How cool is that? Is that awesome? If you want to follow the Fremantle Network, come up and give me your email address or follow us on Facebook. I'd love to see you again. Please have a wonderful night.